Order. Because of our delayed start, the debate may now continue until 4:47. David Mundell to move the motion.
I beg to move that this House has considered the Nutrition for Growth Paris Summit 2025. And it's a particular pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, Ms Jardine. I'm grateful for the opportunity to propose the motion and to make the case for a strong, ambitious and well-targeted UK commitment at the Nutrition for Growth Summit, which is taking place in Paris this Thursday and Friday, and which I'm pleased to be able to attend alongside my honourable friends, the member for Exeter and the member for Worthing West. This debate comes over 3 years since we last gathered in Westminster Hall to debate the previous Nutrition for Growth Summit, which was held in Tokyo in December 2021. And it comes at an important moment for global nutrition, especially in light of recent decisions in the US and here in the UK over spending on aid and international development. It also comes a week after the publication of the International Development Committee's inquiry into the government's efforts to achieve Sustainable Development Goal 2, Zero Hunger, and on which I served as a member of that committee. We all know that access to good nutrition is foundational to development. It plays a critical role in health, education, gender equality and economic advancement. It is essential to achieving so many of the other sustainable development goals. For pregnant women, good nutrition in pregnancy leads to healthier mothers, fewer complications in childbirth, less chance of stunting in children and a greater chance of children reaching their educational potential. Proven, cost-effective interventions, such as providing expectant mothers with multiple micronutrient supplements, or MMS, can make the world of difference to a child's start in life. For children, good nutrition makes vaccines more effective, reducing the risks of infectious diseases, which can spread rapidly and which do not respect borders. A well-nourished child is 11 times less likely to die from common infectious diseases such as pneumonia than a severely undernourished one. Good nutrition also reduces the risk of obesity, cancer and other non-communicable diseases such as diabetes and cardiovascular disease, which are on the rise in many low and middle income countries. Without good nutrition, individuals and communities cannot develop to their full potential, economic productivity and development is constrained, and stability and security is undermined. Studies have shown that combating malnutrition can raise per capita GDP by up to 11%, helping to break the cycle of poverty, inequality and food insecurity. In addition, investments in nutrition are proven to be low cost and high impact, representing one of the highest value development initiatives. According to the World Bank, for every $1 that has been invested in nutrition, $23 are returned to the local economy. Conversely, malnutrition costs African economies between 3 and 16% of GDP annually. Yet, despite all we know about the importance of good nutrition, malnutrition is still the leading cause of death in children under 5 years old, claiming the lives of 2 million children under 5 every year. In 2022, an estimated 45 million children under the age of 5 suffered from wasting. 148 million had stunted growth and 37 million were overweight. In 2023, an estimated 733 million people globally faced hunger. Around 200 million more people face acute food insecurity this year compared to pre-pandemic levels. Conflicts and humanitarian crises, including Sudan, the DRC, Syria and Gaza, are causing global hunger to soar. Up to 1.9 million people are estimated to be on the brink of famine. The UK has a long and proud history of global leadership and action on nutrition. The UK was the founder of the Nutrition for Growth Summit back in 2013, when over 100 stakeholders pledged more than $4 billion in new nutrition-specific projects, and a further $19 billion in nutrition-sensitive projects. Our excellent civil servants in the Foreign and Commonwealth and Development Office are world-class thought leaders and conveners on innovation regarding malnutrition. And the UK is the home to world-leading scientists and researchers who are making strides to advance technologies and nutrient-dense, drought-resistant crops to support communities all over the world to have more secure and nutritious diets. The recent cuts to ODA could have devastating impacts on the global hunger and malnutrition crisis. The nutrition budget was disproportionately impacted by the cuts to ODA in 2021, with research conducted by development initiatives for the FCDO indicating that nutrition spending was cut by more than 60%. The government must not allow this further reduction in spending to exacerbate the existing global crisis or to damage our reputation globally. This week's Nutrition for Growth Summit is a real opportunity for the government to show continued UK leadership and commitment to global nutrition. This Thursday and Friday, the Government of France, led by President Macron, will convene governments, philanthropists, non-governmental organisations and business leaders at the summit to commit finances and make policy changes that will help to end malnutrition. It will be the fifth Nutrition for Growth Summit since it was launched by the UK in the margins of the 2012 Olympic and Paralympic Games. The last summit in Tokyo mobilised $27 billion through commitments made by 181 stakeholders across 78 countries. Unfortunately, the previous government was not able to make a commitment at the Tokyo summit itself in 2021, which did spark widespread criticism from partner countries. But thanks, I believe, to the great efforts of my colleague, the Right Honourable Member for Aldridge Brown Hills, then in the FCDO, that decision was reversed 2 months later, and the UK did indeed make a £1.5 billion pledge. We still hope that this year the UK will play its full part in ensuring the summit is a success. The Paris summit is a crucial opportunity to build on this momentum and a critical step in turning the tide against the scourge of malnutrition. It will also put the nutrition at the heart of the Sustainable Development Agenda, recognising that nutrition is foundational to development, as it is indeed foundational to the UK's wider development aims, and will make the fight against all forms of malnutrition a universal cause. Since 2013, the Nutrition for Growth Summit has been a key event for driving greater action towards ending malnutrition, mobilising the international community and placing nutrition higher up the development agenda. This year, commitments made will be more important than ever in elevating the fight against malnutrition. The summit's outcomes will have a lasting impact on the health, development and economic potential of millions of people worldwide, especially women and children. We welcome the fact that the new Minister for International Development will represent the UK at the summit, but I hope the Minister today will be able to confirm that the UK will demonstrate its commitment to leadership on sustainable development goal by doing everything it can to ensure that the summit is a success. And I hope the Minister will commit to a strong, ambitious and well-targeted UK summit at the pledge at the summit, or if that requires the spending review to be completed, then that pledge should come after the spending review. In addition, I hope the Minister can reaffirm the recent commitment to integrating nutrition across all aspects of development at the summit to make meaningful progress in tackling the underlying causes of malnutrition. And as the International Development Committee inquiry report recommended, in addition to a generous pledge at the summit, I hope the Minister will commit to a new REACH commitment on nutrition and food security within the next 6 months to focus efforts and improve accountability. The All-Party Group on Nutrition for Development, which I co-chair alongside my honourable friend, the member for Exeter, is calling for the UK to invest at least £500 million in nutrition-specific interventions by 2030. I hope the Government can confirm that it will begin this journey by investing £50 million in the Child Nutrition Fund this year. This would give us an opportunity to maximise our investment by leveraging domestic resources and philanthropic funding, with the potential to transform a £50 million contribution into up to £5 million of impact. Chair, whatever colleagues' views are on the overseas aid budget, I'm sure that we all agree that taxpayers' money should be spent as impactfully as possible. Therefore, we must prioritise nutrition and use summits such as Nutrition for Growth to maximise our contribution at a time of restricted finances and coordinate our approach with other countries to maximise impact even further. It's vital that low-cost, high-impact, nutrition-specific interventions such as MMS and ready-to-use therapeutic food are protected and prioritised. They can pull young children back from the brink of starvation in weeks. I hope the Minister will set out an ambition to reach at least 50 million children, women and adolescent girls with nutrition-related interventions by 2030, and commit to reporting yearly on how many people are reached with nutrition-specific interventions. I hope the UK Government will support global accountability efforts by funding the Global Nutrition Report to enhance the nutrition accountability framework, a critical tool to ensure governments follow through on their Nutrition for Growth commitments. And finally, I hope the Government will ensure that partnerships with local civil society organisations are strengthened so they can advocate more effectively for nutrition to their own governments. To conclude, Ms Jardine, let me give just one example of the difference that such commitments can make by speaking about Hanzala. Hanzala struggled with pneumonia and malnutrition before he could even sit up on his own. Born in a remote village in Afghanistan, his mother was unable to access care, with the nearest clinic over 40 kilometres away, until in 2023, World Vision Afghanistan opened a health centre supported by the FCDO in Hanzala's village. His mother rushed him to the clinic, where he was found to weigh just 6.8 kilograms, well below the 9.2 kilograms a healthy 13-month-old boy should weigh. Hanzala was immediately enrolled in the outpatient department for severe acute malnutrition programme, receiving ready-to-use therapeutic food, and his mother received nutritional counselling and a sanitation kit to improve their living conditions. I'm sure that we will all be pleased to know that only 4 months later, Hanzala had made a full recovery, able to play like any other child, a direct result of decisions made by the UK Government and the support of organisations like World Vision. So let's grasp the opportunity that the Nutrition for Growth Summit this week affords. Let's continue to wield our convening power as the UK and play a leading role as a key global nutrition partner, driving this agenda and working alongside other donor and high-burden countries to ensure global nutrition investments are prioritised and deliver maximum impact. and I look forward to the debate and the Minister's positive response.
Can I remind members that they should bob if they wish to be called in the debate? The question is that this House has considered the Nutrition for Growth Paris Summit 2025. Steve Race.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it's a privilege to serve under your chairship for the first time. I want to thank the Right Honourable Member for Dumfriesshire, Clydesdale and Tweedale for securing time for this important debate on the eve of the Nutrition for Growth Summit in Paris. His long-standing commitment to improving the lives of the most disadvantaged in the world, and particularly those experiencing malnutrition and hunger, is clear to see both in this debate and through his work in the House, and I'm proud to work alongside him as his new fellow co-chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Nutrition for Development, and also to attend the Nutrition for Growth Summit with him over the coming days. I also want to take this opportunity to pay tribute to my predecessor in the role, the now Minister for Africa, who continues to be a passionate champion for nutrition in government. As my co-chair has ably set out, this summit comes at a critical time for global nutrition, and its outcomes will have a lasting impact on the health, cognitive development and economic potential of millions of people. Across the world, 733 million people suffer from hunger, and over 2.8 billion are unable to afford a healthy diet. Malnutrition claims the lives of over 2 million children every year, with millions more left with permanent physical and cognitive impairment. And more than 1 billion adolescent girls and women worldwide suffer from undernutrition. It is therefore critical that the summit this week is a successful platform for global action. A few weeks ago, I visited Paris together with the Right Honourable Member opposite to meet with the organisers of the Nutrition for Growth Summit, including Special Envoy and Secretary-General of Nutrition for Growth, Bric Pont, and some of our counterparts in the French Parliament. They all emphasised the importance of the UK playing a leadership role at the summit, using our considerable convening strength to press for collective action on nutrition and to underscore its importance to global development and stability. I was struck again by how addressing malnutrition must be a collective endeavour. It's not an issue that one country can solve by itself, and we must all play our part. Indeed, the UK has a proud history on malnutrition and hunger. The last Labour government's nutrition strategy, the neglected crisis of undernutrition, marked the start of a decade of UK leadership on global nutrition. And the UK initiated Nutrition for Growth, convening the first summit in London in 2013. The UK's first investment at that summit reached over 50 million people with nutrition services between 2015 and 2020. And I am pleased that the new Minister for International Development will be attending the summit this week, and I hope that the UK can, as the founder of Nutrition for Growth, play a full role, including through making an ambitious financial pledge. The urgency couldn't be more clear. The growing crisis of global malnutrition is inflicting immense suffering on millions of people, undermining economic development and driving instability with huge geopolitical implications. Just before I became a Member of Parliament, I travelled to Kenya with UNICEF, United Against Malnutrition and Hunger, and Action Against Hunger, along with the member for Esher and Walton opposite, to see the positive impact of interventions to help treat and prevent malnutrition for children and families in hard-to-reach communities hit by severe drought. Seeing how UK development assistance is delivered on the ground had a profound impact on me. In Isiolo County, we visited mobile outreach stations set up by local health workers to deliver emergency nutrition, vaccines, maternal health and education about nutrition too. The nurses there told us that since the clinic has been running in that county, they have seen malnutrition rates drop year on year. These interventions work. We know that access to good nutrition is the foundation on which sustainable development is built. If children suffer from malnutrition early age, this will have an impact throughout their lives. It will impact on education, economic and health outcomes. Yet the children we met were getting what they needed not only to survive, but to thrive. This is why the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Nutrition for Development would like to see the UK invest at least £500 million in nutrition-specific interventions by 2030. And those nutrition-specific interventions, such as ready-to-use therapeutic food, also known as RUTF, vitamin A supplements, support for breastfeeding, and prenatal multiple micronutrient supplementation, or MMS, are cost-effective, proven, and powerful interventions, supporting women who have the highest nutritional needs, yet often eat last and least, and enabling them to give their children the best start in life. MMS, for example, is proven to support the health of both baby and mother and reduce the risks of birth complications. And at £3 per pregnancy, this is a low-cost intervention with high return on investment. Also, recovery rates of children with severe acute malnutrition who receive a full course of RUTF are over 90%. So, recognising that women and girls are disproportionately affected by hunger and malnutrition, I wonder whether the Minister might commit to ensuring that at least 90% of nutrition spending is also gender sensitive. RUTF can also be locally produced and locally owned. In Nairobi, we visited a factory locally manufacturing RUTF, part funded by UK Development Assistance. This factory exports RUTF across East Africa, and they're now trialling growing their own groundnuts, the primary ingredient of RUTF, in low-income communities within Kenya. This means that Kenya can produce its own nutrition products closer to people, supporting the local economy and creating jobs and livelihoods. These interventions work, they provide value for money, and they build genuine partnerships with governments. So I wonder whether the Minister can provide an update on the government's commitment to nutrition-specific interventions too. One way that this could be achieved would be through the Child Nutrition Fund, developed by UNICEF with support from the UK Government, the Gates Foundation and the Children's Investment Fund Foundation. The Child Nutrition Fund has huge potential to create genuine, equitable partnerships with low and middle income countries. It can also leverage significant additional funding through match funding initiatives by global philanthropies, and this would give the government the opportunity to maximise its investment with the potential, as the Right Honourable Member opposite said, to transform a £50 million UK contribution into up to £500 million of impact, maximising our contribution and our impact at a time of fiscal constraint. And critically, the Child Nutrition Fund also provides a means to unlock financial and political commitment from low and middle income countries too, creating a path of transition away from dependency on global financing to domestic financing and an exit strategy for global donors. So will the Minister provide an update on the government's commitment to the Child Nutrition Fund too? The government has demonstrated positive action on global hunger and malnutrition in recent months. The UK was one of the founding members of the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, launched last November in Rio. The government has also more than doubled its aid to Sudan and neighbouring countries where malnutrition rates have soared due to the devastating conflicts and subsequent displacement. And the FCDO has recently committed to integrating nutrition across all aspects of its work. These are really encouraging steps. And I want to finish on two final points, Madam Chair. Could the Minister provide a timeline on how quickly the government aims to pivot the ODA budget back to its core purpose? The use of ODA to support the broken asylum application system in the UK clearly needs to end. The government has committed to this and putting money back into the asylum by putting money back into the asylum application processing system and shortening the times that asylum seekers spend in hotels. However, this must be accelerated so that the 0.3% ODA budget is spent on ODA programmes, which is the expectation. And finally, can the Minister provide comment on the ways in which the UK can use our legislative clout to close tax evasion and other financial loopholes that deprive developing countries of tax income? The IMF estimates this tax gap to be over $200 billion a year. As one of the global centres of finance, London is still awash with money effectively stolen from developing nations and channelled and hidden through shell companies. That same status also brings the opportunity to further clamp down on it in London, and with significant ties to overseas dependencies that can facilitate the illicit transfer of this cash, the UK government can use its position to close this tax gap for good. I hope that we can take this momentum to the Nutrition for Growth Summit this week and recommit UK leadership, political will and investment in nutrition. Our leadership will help ensure vital clinics like the one I saw in Isiolo County are able to continue to deliver the life-saving support to the most vulnerable communities and especially their young children and mothers. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Jim Shannon.
Chair, can I say what a pleasure it is to serve under your chairship? I think it seems to happen nearly every week now, so I wish the Honourable Lady continued success in what she does. And can I thank the Honourable Member for Dumfriesshire, Clydesdale and Tredale for leading today's debate on this important issue. Also a very busy man, last Thursday speaking in a debate in Westminster Hall, yesterday chairing Westminster Hall, and today he's back at it again. Well done to him on a subject matter that we're all very pleased to come along and support him. Really pleased, I mean genuinely pleased to see the Minister's place. All the years that I've known the Minister in this House, his heart lies with this subject matter. and I think we'll not be disappointed when we hear the response from the Minister for the questions that we'll pose to him as well. And always a pleasure to see the Shadow Minister in her place as well. And combating malnutrition across the world is crucial. It's something that we all have a heart for. That's why we're here. But it's also something that we're always so glad as well to support others globally, like we expect that they would support us back. In some African countries, Madam Chair, the situation is horrid, and there's more we can do as a collective. I just want to make a very quick thank you, as I think it's important that we do so, Madam Chair, to the churches in my constituency, and I believe churches across this great nation of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and my constituency of Stratford. Elim Church in particular, in Newton Ards, Elim Missions have a really productive and strategy and plan for Zimbabwe, number one, but also for Swaziland as well. And the reason why it's a long relationship, almost, I understand, almost 30 years, and they've helped them with education, they've helped them with health, they've helped them with food production, they've helped them to gain job and training, and their work that they do in Swaziland particularly, which is ravished with HIV disease and all the complexities that there are with that, is something that I commend. Of course, there are many other churches that do likewise, the Presbyterian Church, the Church of Ireland, the Methodist, the Baptist, and many, many other churches. I think, Minister, if you don't mind me saying, I think it's a real role for a partnership with some of those church groups in a way that I think we could be productive for everyone. First of all, you've got the heart of the churches and their congregations that want to do something, and more often than not, it's their own money from the congregations that's poured into that. But what they do sometimes fills a gap where maybe government just can't get there. So if we could, I often ask for it, but I do it because I think there's a role of partnership that can be played together. So maybe, if the Minister doesn't mind, maybe he could give me some thoughts upon that, please. Madam Chair, the UN Sustainable Development Goal is to create a world free from hunger by 2030. Quite an ambition, to be fair, including bringing down rates of undernourishment, food insecurity and childhood stunting and wasting. The Honourable Gentleman from the Free Shire, Clydesdale and Tudale, in his introduction, gave examples of, and others will give those examples as well, I know they will. In addition, the UN Food and Agriculture Organization reported in 2024 the world is still far off track in achieving its goals, with a stalling of the progress since 2020. So again, we would be encouraged today, all of us would be, and those outside who are watching would be encouraged if Government and the Minister can give us some encouragement to what has been done to get it back on track again, to ensure that we can deliver the goal of 2030. The rates of 1 in 11 people facing undernourishment globally and 1 in 5 in Africa. There has been some progress in terms of stunting and wasting, but we're still way off the target of 2030. In 2024, the UK also joined the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, and now some 70 million of funding over 18 months to address food insecurity. The UK is also participating in a new joint UN initiative on the prevention of wasting, which was launched in March 2025, just in the last week or 10 days approximately. Stats by UNICEF estimated some 5.7 million children in the region required treatment for acute malnutrition, with 1.8 million children experiencing life-threatening malnutrition. The one time, Madam Chair, that I watch TV is probably the Sunday afternoon, and more often than not, when you're watching, as I do, the Westerns, that probably tells you what age I am, but the adverts either side of those films always portray very graphically the malnutrition and the hunger that children have. And it always reminds me when we're sitting in some grandeur and never hungry for food, when we look at young children across the world that are in poverty, and the mothers who do everything they can to feed their child. It is always a salient reminder for me and for others of what we've got to do and the level of child poverty. The level of child poverty is a wide-scale issue, Madam Chair, and as my party's health spokesperson, these are issues close to my heart, which warrants the attention and effort to be resolved. So it's really important to be here and to recognise that government, because we recognise the good things that government, the honourable gentleman who spoke before outlined a number of things that government's doing, but I know the Minister is committed to this. Government is committed to the 2022 UK commitment to spend £1.5 billion from 2022 to 2023 on nutrition objectives, but there is, I believe, more that can be done. Perhaps after a reflection of the figures, government could look at the impact this will have to assess if there is more and if there's more available to reach out and to help communities that are under incredible pressure. We need to do more, I believe, to support the global effort in combating malnutrition. Every father, every grandfather would do whatever he could for his child or his grandchildren. I think we as a government have a duty, as compassionate government, and as I know the Minister is a compassionate person as well, to ensure that we can reach out and help. So to conclude, Madam Chair, we must do more, I believe, to strengthen global partnerships with organisations. That's probably what I reflected in my first part of my contribution today, and other governments to advocate for better nutrition support in other countries. So it's something that we can't do on our own because our resources are limited, but we can do it with others and make it happen. So I look very much to the Minister for the commitment that government can give to supporting those in extreme poverty, and an update, if at all possible, in relation to the UK's contribution to the 2030 targets. Madam Chair, thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr Becky Cooper.
Thank you to the honourable member for Dumfriesshire, Clydesdale and Tweeddale for organising this debate. So much has been covered already in the previous speeches, so I don't want to reiterate or repeat unnecessarily, but I do just want to draw attention to some really key statistics around the fact that nutrition is such a core issue, both in the area of health, but also in the area of global security. So the stats that have already been cited but are worth citing again are that the World Food Programme says that in relation to global security, a 1% increase in food insecurity leads to a 2% increase in migration. And if we're thinking about stability and geopolitical stability and all the issues that we currently talk about, to see a 2% increase in migration because of a 1% increase in food insecurity, that really doesn't make any sense in this world today. We really need to do everything we can to mitigate against that. And similarly, around nutrition being a global growth issue, we talk a lot in this country about growth, about economic growth, but we all know that we are as much in hock to world economic factors as we are to our own national factors. And as the honourable member for Dumfriesshire, Clydesdale and Tweeddale has already said, according to the World Bank, if you invest $1 in nutrition, you get $23 back into the local economy. By any accounts, with any economist, that is surely a no-brainer. So my particular interest in this is because I'm a public health consultant. So prior to my days in this place, I worked in an NGO that has already been named, World Vision, along with the Minister who's sitting there today. So we have been in this field for quite a long time, as have many of the honourable members sitting here. And we have seen the same conversations come up again and again with regards to nutrition. We all sit here as human beings and we all have the basic level of need. And in public health, as in so many other disciplines, there is something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And basically, if you cannot satisfy your basic human needs, you cannot do anything else. So if you are hungry, if your children are hungry, all the other things that we aspire to for our communities, for the people that we live with, for our governance, for stability, for growth, none of those can be achieved if we are hungry and if our children are hungry. And when we think about those foundational elements, Madam Chair, we think about those in two ways. So we think about acute interventions, which have been mentioned already. So as the Honourable Member for Exeter has talked about, the ready-to-use therapeutic foods, the vitamin supplements, those absolutely fundamental critical needs that we see in so many places around this globe, including in our own country, actually. They are different malnutritional needs, but they are malnutritional needs nonetheless. And they are acute interventions, and we must address those. But alongside that, there is the longer-term nutritional stability, which is a global conversation as well as a UK conversation. How do we make sure that the food that we are able to grow on this planet is sustainably grown, has the right levels of nutrition, and is distributed equally across this planet? These are conversations that have been going on for many years. But this Nutritional for Growth conference in Paris is yet another opportunity for us to come together, bring together some people with excellent experience, and really see if we can push this conversation forward. It has been mentioned already by my honourable friend across there about maternal and child health. The first 1,000 days are critical. And in the Health and Social Care Select Committee at the moment, we are looking at the first 1,000 days, specifically in this country. But why we should only focus on this country is absolutely beyond me, because first 1,000 days, whether you live in this country or whether you live in other countries, we still need exactly the same things. Humans are humans wheresoever they and they should be. So a global initiative looking at the first 1,000 days, concentrating on good nutrition for mothers, good nutrition for babies, good nutrition for early days. It will significantly decrease childhood stunting, wasting and developmental delay. And again, going back to the things that we all want to see in our communities in terms of growth, thriving, safety, people doing well, that cannot happen if those basic tenets of nutrition are not in place. As again has previously been said, the UK has been a leader in this space for some years now, and I appreciate there has been a cut in the overseas development aid, but that does not mean that we cannot still demonstrate leadership in this space. As a responsible partner in this global health initiative, in our global safety, which has as much resonance for the people in this country as it does in other countries, we must make sure that we are prioritising the things that will truly make a difference to people's well-being and safety and stability. And therefore, in this conference that starts tomorrow, I ask respectfully that our ministers will go forward and lead in this space, that they will really prioritise nutrition for growth in terms of global health and security, and that they will continue in our proud history of global leadership in this area. Thank you.
Morello.
Thank you, Ms. Jardine, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairship, and I congratulate the honourable member for Dumfriesshire, Clydesdale and Tweeddale for securing this important debate. Malnutrition is one of the greatest barriers to health, economic growth and development worldwide. It contributes to nearly half of all child deaths and has long-term consequences for education, economic productivity and global stability. The Nutrition for Growth Summit presents a crucial opportunity for world leaders to address these issues and commit to sustainable solutions. The World Bank estimates annual investment in targeted nutrition interventions must increase from 6.3 billion to 19.3 billion by 2034 to meet global needs. The UK has long played a leading role in tackling these issues through targeted aid and development programmes. But recent reductions in the official development assistance budget threaten our ability to continue making a meaningful impact. The UK spent nearly £1 billion on bilateral aid for basic nutrition between 2009 and 23. However, spending has declined sharply in recent years, from £146 million in 2017 to just £24 million in 2023. Similarly, broader nutrition-sensitive aid has fallen from a peak of £2.7 billion in 2016 to £1.2 billion in 2023. These reductions have been steeper than the overall decrease in UK aid spending. Since the shift to 0.5% of gross national income for aid in 2021, total UK aid fell by 21%, while nutrition-specific aid dropped by 61% and nutrition-sensitive aid by 54%. The decision to reduce the UK's ODA commitment to 0.3% of GNI by 2027 will only decrease our ability to meet this challenge. Malnutrition doesn't just affect health outcomes. The UK has been a leader in development because we recognise that investing in nutrition delivers long-term benefits. Every £1 spent on nutrition intervention generates up to £16 in economic returns through increased productivity and reduced healthcare costs. Cuts to UK aid will leave a vacuum that countries like Russia and China will fill. The Foreign Secretary has previously acknowledged that the strategic risk of stepping back from development aid, and the Liberal Democrats have consistently warned reducing aid weakens our ability to counter malign influences and support fragile states. Rather than cut aid, The Liberal Democrats call on the government to reverse the Tory tax cuts for big banks and tax the social media giants currently profiting from spreading misinformation and disinformation on behalf of our enemies. The Nutrition for Growth Summit in Paris is a moment to reaffirm the UK's leadership in global development. We have always stood for a world where every individual has an opportunity to thrive. Liberal values are rooted in the belief that every person has worth, dignity and the right to a healthy life. The government must ensure that the UK remains at the forefront of the fight against malnutrition, not retreats from it.
Abdesam Mohammed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairship, and I'd like to congratulate the Honourable Member for Dumfriesshire, Clydesdale and Tweedale for securing this very important and timely debate. I'd also like to thank him and my colleague, the Member for Exeter, for their commitment to advocating for investment and focus on global nutrition through their work on the APPG on Nutrition for Development. It's fantastic to see cross-party support on this vital issue, and I wish them all the best at the Nutrition for Growth Summit later this week. As has already been stated, this summit could not come at a more critical time for global nutrition. Malnutrition rates across the world are soaring, and the most vulnerable people are paying the price, including women and children. For 2025, the World Food Programme predicts that 343 million people will be food insecure in the 74 countries that the agency is active in. And the number of food insecure people is 200 million, above pre-pandemic levels. I would like to focus my remarks on the factors which members will be unsurprised to hear, which has been identified as the main driver of food insecurity: conflict. 65% of people living in acute food insecurity live in conflict or fragile affected areas. 14 of the 16 hunger hotspots identified by the World Food Programme are conflict zones, including Gaza, Nigeria, Sudan, Ethiopia and Yemen. Hunger and conflict coexist in a deadly cycle. When conflict strikes, civilian populations are often forced to flee their homes, land and livestock grazing areas, leaving them food insecure and without access to their local markets or agriculture. Women, children and marginalised groups are disproportionately affected, bearing the brunt of violence and its long-term impacts. Malnutrition is a typical outcome in conflict zones, with children most affected by increased mortality and stunted growths. Conflict also disrupts supply chains and infrastructure, including farms and agricultural land, through looting or destruction of food stocks, agricultural assets, food production facilities and other objects of critical infrastructure, leading to long-term food insecurity. Similarly, where extreme hunger and child deaths fester, so too do anger, instability and violence, with consequences that spread across the world. A world in which billions of people are malnourished produces instability and perpetuates injustice. Populations which are chronically poor and marginalised are vulnerable to exploitation and abuse. Children and young people are particularly exposed to recruitment into armed groups, forced labour, early marriage and other forms of abuse. These crimes create fragile populations and instability. Addressing long-term drivers of fragility, as well as immediate causes of conflict, is essential for addressing the deadly cycle of conflict and hunger. We know that adherence to international humanitarian law is vital for mitigating and preventing famine-like conditions in conflict. But across the world, respect for international humanitarian law is steadily being eroded, particularly through deliberate withholding and blocking of food aid. In their report, Food Insecurity and Armed Conflict and the Use of Siege-like Tactics, the Geneva Academy identified an increase in the violation of international humanitarian law regarding the deliberate withholding and blocking of humanitarian aid to induce food insecurity and famine-like conditions. This repeated tactic can be seen in Sudan, South Sudan, Gaza and Mali, amongst many other crises and conflicts. In Sudan, millions of people living in Darfur, North and South Kordofan and Khartoum are at an immediate risk of famine. Over half of the country, 25.6 million people, are experiencing severe food insecurity. Over 1 in 3 children are facing acute malnutrition, above the 20% threshold for a famine confirmation. This is a man-made crisis, rife with violations of international humanitarian law. Conflict actors have disrupted supply chains and infrastructure, including farms and agricultural land, through looting and destruction of food stocks, agricultural assets, food production facilities, as well as other elements of infrastructure. Humanitarian operations are at risk of interference from conflict actors, either through bureaucratic impediments or violent attacks, severely hindering humanitarian actors' ability to deliver life-saving aid. I was grateful to hear that the Prime Minister named Sudan as a key priority for the UK following the decrease in ODA. But with such limited resources available, I am concerned that the UK will simply not be able to follow through on its commitments. So will the Minister commit to protecting nutrition spending in conflict-affected areas like Sudan to ensure that life-saving food aid gets to those who are at most risk of famine and malnutrition? I'm also concerned that other hunger spots like Nigeria, Ethiopia and the Democratic Republic of Congo will also be forgotten, and the impact there will be devastating. Can the Minister confirm what assessment they have made on the impact of the funding cuts on some of these most fragile and conflict-affected countries where rates of malnutrition are sky high? And if they have not conducted that impact assessment, will the Minister commit to undertaking one? I want to finish my remarks by picking up on what the Right Honourable Member for Dumfriesshire, Clydesdale and Tweedale mentioned about British science and innovation being at the forefront of efforts to combat global hunger. My constituency of Sheffield Central is home to the world-leading Institute for Sustainable Food, based at the Sheffield University. At the Institute, scientists are developing drought-resistant crops in growth chambers which can mimic the conditions brought on by climate change in arid conditions across the world. With support from the UK Government, these innovations can be shared across the world to support food-insecure communities in some of the world's toughest climates. Scientists at the Institute have also developed the pioneering Desert Garden, a hydroponic system which enables nutrient-dense food such as basil and tomatoes to be grown in materials available to communities in refugee settings such as mattresses. These desert gardens use minimal water and readily available conditions and so are perfect for supporting vulnerable populations. They have been used in the Zaatari refugee camp in Jordan to support those fleeing war and conflict to fend off malnutrition and maintain a nutrient-rich diet. Moreover, local people have been given responsibility of the projects, increasing their ownership control and supporting their livelihoods. I have seen this work firsthand, and I'm proud that it is being developed in my constituency, but not enough is known about it. What work is the Minister doing in collaboration with other departments, such as the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology, to promote and champion British science and expertise, which is contributing to the global fight against hunger? And will the Minister explore ways to build on the UK's existing nutrition policy by partnering with governments and research institutions to fund research in key areas such as preventing malnutrition, child wasting, adolescent nutrition and immunisation nutrition integration? It makes sense to champion British science, which is at the forefront of efforts to combat global hunger and support innovative solutions. As members have said, the upcoming Nutrition for Growth Summit is a key moment to address the global scourge of malnutrition, particularly for those trapped in conflict and war zones. I urge the Government to take this opportunity with both hands and to not let the chance to make a strong commitment go. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Monica Harding.
Thank you, Chair. It is a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I want to thank the Honourable Member for Dumfriesshire, Clydesdale and Tweedsdale for bringing this debate here today. The Nutrition for Growth Summit is an opportunity for the UK to reaffirm our country's commitment to eradicating hunger. Because since 2012, when we founded and hosted the inaugural Nutrition for Growth Summit in London following our hosting of the Olympic Games, there is so much that Britain and British leadership has achieved. We helped to raise £17 billion to fight malnutrition, and between 2015 and 2020, we surpassed our goal of reaching 50 million people with food assistance and nutrition-relevant programming, saving countless lives. But now we are at an inflection point, and there is a risk that progress on nutrition and the development goals is slipping. In the UN's recent report, we were warned that the world is on track to meet just 17% of our 2030 targets. On a further 17% of targets, we have regressed. And nowhere has there been greater regression than on the Sustainable Development Goal 2, zero hunger. Driven by spreading conflict, worsening climate change and the disruption of the pandemic years, the number of those suffering from malnutrition
in the House now, so I think we'll have to suspend until we have voted. Sorry. 6 votes now. 6 votes now. Yeah. Order will now resume, and we have 42 minutes left. So, where was it? Yes, Liberal Democratic spokesperson Monica Harding to continue, please.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, would you like me to start again?
It's up to yourself.
Thank you, Chair. It is still a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. And I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for Dumfriesshire, Clydesdale and Tweedsdale for bringing this debate today. The Nutrition for Growth Summit is an opportunity for the UK to reaffirm our country's commitment to eradicating hunger. Because since 2012, when we founded and hosted the inaugural Nutrition for Growth Summit in London, following our hosting of the Olympics, there is so much that Britain and British leadership has achieved. We helped to raise £17 billion to fight malnutrition, and between 2015 and 2020, we surpassed our goal of reaching 50 million people with food assistance and nutrition-relevant programming, saving countless lives. But we are now at an inflection point, and there is a risk that progress on nutrition and the development goals is slipping. Driven by spreading conflict, worsening climate change and the disruption of the pandemic years, the number of those suffering from malnutrition has risen by 150 million in 5 years. And at this moment, we have a broader challenge. The government has chosen not to redouble efforts to fight hunger, but to slash the official development assistance budget to its lowest level this century. We believe a moral and strategic mistake that will exacerbate food insecurity and render all of us here in the UK less safe. Since the Prime Minister's announcement in February, there has been little clarity about UK development priorities or about what existing promises this government intends to honour. The Nutrition Action for Systemic Change report published last year found that the government was then tracking to meet our Nutrition for Growth commitment made following the 2021 summit in Tokyo of spending £1.5 billion on nutrition objectives between 2022 and 2030. And just 1 week before the development budget was cut by 40%, the former Development Minister, the member for Oxford East, again affirmed that the UK's commitment to that £1.5 billion figure. Will the Minister today repeat this pledge and assure us that the UK will not renege on the resources promised by multiple governments to fight hunger? In addition to the worsening levels of hunger, the overall nutrition picture is growing increasingly complex. The so-called triple burden of malnutrition, obesity and vitamin deficiency requires solutions which combat all three issues together. These must encompass ready-to-use therapeutic food, vitamin A supplementation, as well as other nutrients and health interventions targeting obesity. So will the Minister share the specific steps the FCDO is taking to ensure that UK nutrition policy addresses all dimensions of this triple burden, including by requiring that the development finance investments made by arm's-length FCDO bodies align with UK nutrition goals? Nutrition-specific ODA, often delivered in a context of urgent humanitarian need, is indispensable. It is regularly the difference between life and death for some of the world's poorest. And as we speak, the UN's World Food Programme is closing offices in Africa. The agency received around half its funding last year from USAID, and so is now facing acute financial pressures, cutting the delivery of life-saving RUTF and other supplies. The impact of the USAID's gutting is already devastating. In the coming year, reduced food assistance could result in as many as 550,000 deaths, according to the New York Times. We Liberal Democrats believe there is a moral imperative for the UK to act in the face of this looming catastrophe. We believe that filling some of the funding gaps left by the retreat of USAID will require the UK to play a vital convening role. So could the Minister inform us on what conversations the UK is having and leading with partner nations, NGOs and other philanthropic organisations aimed at catalysing targeted nutrition interventions? At the same time, we must recognise that highly focused specific interventions are only capable of addressing around 30% of the most persistent nutritional challenges like child stunting and child wasting. Progress on the other 70% requires progress on a wide range of nutrition-sensitive development areas, including maternal health, agricultural productivity, WASH and climate change, and vice versa. A pregnant mother experiencing malnutrition and unable to access multiple micronutrient supplements is far more likely to give birth to a stunted child. Even vaccines are less effective when delivered to children experiencing malnutrition. And as the International Development Committee argued, and I must declare an interest here as a member, in its most recent report, nutrition and food security are cross-cutting themes across UK ODA programming, and so success requires not only highly targeted interventions, but a strategic approach that integrates nutrition throughout development work. Now, I know that this integration is a priority for the FCDO, and I'm pleased that the Minister will be championing a global compact on nutrition integration in Paris. However, according to the NASC's 2024 report, from 2021 to 2022, the nutrition-sensitive share of the FCDO's ODA spend actually declined. For humanitarian spending, it fell from 27% to 22%. For health spending, it fell from 11% to 5%. And for education spending, it fell from 4% to just 1%. So what concrete steps is the FCDO taking to reverse this trend and to model nutrition integration going forward? Moreover, what accountability mechanisms will be tied to the Global Compact on nutrition integration such that it changes behaviour and produces results? There may be no area of development as linked as closely to nutrition as conflict. The World Food Programme found that conflict was the key driver of food insecurity last year and showed that 2/3 of those facing acute food insecurity did so in fragile or conflict-affected locations. Not only does violence, conflict and instability lead to displacement and migration, not only does it create a breeding ground for terrorism that can threaten us here in the UK, it also undermines our professed nutrition objectives. And yet, the Integrated Security Fund, which addresses acute national security threats and is partially funded through ODA, is facing significant cuts due to this government's decision to slash aid. So will the Minister therefore assure us that the government's development cut will not result in cuts to the ODA-funded portion of the ISF? I am also concerned that the cut will mean a further hollowing out of the UK expert capacity. When DFID was merged with the Foreign Office in 2020, it was expert teams which gave Britain the know-how on how to lead on areas like nutrition that were chronically under-resourced. Our capacity suffered as a result, and I urge the Minister to prioritise protecting the UK's health and nutrition expertise embedded in country and in the FCDO. I'm very pleased that the UK will be represented by a Minister at the Nutrition for Growth Summit, and I wish our envoy all our support and encouragement in convening and corralling support for a compact on nutrition integration. Yet it is difficult to lead on global nutrition policy when we are stepping back from funding nutrition. I remain deeply disappointed that there will be no new financial commitments announced by this government to mark the summit. Nutrition is foundational for development. Investments in nutrition are low cost and high impact, representing one of the highest value development initiatives. We also know how to do it. Indeed, we have achieved remarkable success, halving the proportion of people suffering from undernourishment in developing regions between 1990 and 2015. And we have led that, but we are now in retreat. And so I urge the government to renew that ambition, because nutrition is foundational. Without it, progress on global health, gender equality and peace building is nearly impossible, and the need for that is greater than ever. Thank you.
Thank you. Opposition spokesperson Wendy Morton.
Thank you, Ms Jardine, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship this afternoon. And let me start by congratulating my right honourable friend, the member for Dumfriesshire, Clydesdale and Tweedale, on securing the debate today, which is very, very timely. He brings such considerable knowledge and experience to this debate today, not least as a long-standing member of the International Development Select Committee and as a tremendous advocate for global nutrition. And I have to say I've really enjoyed, although the debate has been interrupted by votes, Ms Jardine, I've actually really enjoyed and found this afternoon's debate incredibly interesting. And I think it's fair to say on both sides of the chamber today, members have brought considerable knowledge and perspectives to this very timely debate, and I thank them for that. Because this debate is timely, coming as it does ahead of the Nutrition for Growth Summit in Paris later this week. A summit at the end of the UN Decade of Action on Nutrition that aims to foster dialogue and action among diverse actors from around the world to put nutrition at the heart of the development agenda. And I was pleased to meet with the French Special Envoy for Nutrition for Growth, Mr. Briot-Pont, in December when he visited London as his country was preparing to host the summit. As Conservatives, we have very much led global action on nutrition. We convened the first Nutrition for Growth Summit in 2013, where 100 stakeholders endorsed the Global Nutrition for Growth Compact, and where the UK committed £575 million on nutrition-specific programmes and to reaching 50 million people by 2020. The Global Nutrition Report found that we have reached the commitments made in London in 2013 and in Milan in 2017. We went further in 2022 and pledged to spend at least £1.5 billion up to 2030 on nutrition objectives. These included addressing the nutrition needs of mothers, babies and children, tackling malnutrition in humanitarian emergencies and making sure that nutrition is central to the FCDO's wider work. And in her time as the Development Minister, the Right Honourable Member for Oxford East reiterated that £1.5 billion commitment in February. And I understand she was due to attend the summit in Paris this week. Now, following the appointment of Baroness Chapman, I would be grateful if the Minister could confirm today if she will be attending the summit as Development Minister. And can the Minister also confirm if the Government continues to stand by the £1.5 billion by 2030 and what steps are being taken to ensure that nutrition remains embedded into the work of the FCDO? We're led to understand, Madam Chairman, that the UK will not be making a financial pledge at the summit and the Government is preparing to make a policy pledge. But can the Minister confirm today if this still is the case? As well as playing a key role in Nutrition for Growth summits, the previous Conservative government led many other nutrition-related initiatives. On the same day as publishing the International Development White Paper, we hosted the Global Food Security Summit in November 2023 to galvanise action to deal with hunger and malnutrition, including through cutting-edge UK-funded science and technology. And the UK has a key role to play in solving these global challenges, especially through our superb science and technology and research sector. And I think it was fair, one of the members on the opposite side was highlighting some of the work of Sheffield University. I'm sure she'll correct me if I got that wrong. But that's why the White Paper laid out our commitment to investing in agricultural technology and innovation to address global challenges such as food security. So I'd like to ask the Minister what plans there are to mobilise UK science and technology to support international development objectives such as supporting global food security. Now, I do appreciate we are yet to see the full detail of the changes to ODA, and we have had no clear answers from ministers about what the priorities will be. So today, I'd like to ask the Minister to confirm for us what the impact will be on the UK's overall nutrition spend. Also, if the Government still intends to make a commitment in Paris, it would be useful to have clarity of what changes we can expect. As the Minister, the Right Honourable Member for Oxford East, said in an answer to one of my written questions that the Government was committed to continuing the integration of the improved nutrition outcomes alongside successes in other sectors such as health, agriculture and humanitarian. So can the Minister outline today what specific measures the FCDO will be supporting in each of these sectors? Ms Jardine, Honourable and Right Honourable Members have been waiting since at least December of last year for the Foreign Secretary to also finish considering the International Development Review by Baroness Shafiq. So I'd like to ask the Minister to tell us today if and when the Department plans to publish the review's findings and when we can expect the Foreign Secretary's response. Because given the changes to ODA, it's only right that members are given the opportunity to see the full detail of that review. In addition, has the review informed the wider decisions around ODA, or is it no longer fit for purpose following the changes? I'd like to just turn to a few country specifics now, if I may. and particularly challenging contexts that underscore the importance of this debate. Firstly, in Sudan, where the humanitarian crisis is rapidly deteriorating, over 30 million people are in urgent need of assistance, and we're seeing devastating food insecurity. We know that there are challenges getting aid in and distributing it effectively. So what steps is the government taking to ensure humanitarian aid can get through to Sudan and to open new routes? And what guardrails are in place to ensure aid reaches those who need it most, including women and girls? In Ethiopia, the World Food Programme identifies that recurrent conflict, droughts, disease and inflation continues to drive humanitarian needs upwards, with 5.8 million people requiring food support in 2024. In 2023, we announced a new funding package of £16.6 million to support more than 600,000 people with food supplies and other nutrition, over half of whom were women and children, bearing the brunt of the world's worsening crisis. Between 2015 and 2020, UK nutrition-related interventions reached 5.54 million children under 5, women and adolescent girls. So I'd like to ask the Minister what the latest assessment is of the scale of humanitarian need in Ethiopia and which of the programmes currently operating in the region are expected to continue. And finally, I'd like to turn to Ukraine, whose grain exports are crucial in ensuring global food security. Before Russia's full-scale illegal invasion, Ukraine accounted for around 10% of global wheat exports and 10% of corn and barley exports. In 2023, Russia deliberately obstructed and withdrew from the Black Sea Grain Initiative and attacked grain storage and export infrastructure. As a result of Ukrainian resilience and innovation, as well as our support and that of international partners, over 13 million tonnes of agricultural produce was exported through the Black Sea since September 2023, as of February last year. These supplies are crucial for the resilience of global grain markets and global food security, and they're especially important for the developing world. Developing countries, including Egypt, Indonesia and Pakistan, have directly received significant quantities of grain from Ukraine via the corridor. So what's the Minister's latest assessment of the quantity of grain going through the Black Sea and the resilience of UK's export infrastructure? But to conclude, Mr Jardine, Nutrition for Growth convenes this week at a crucial moment for the world, and we wish the parties a successful summit. On this side of the House, we're proud of the leadership that we have shown bringing international partners together and embedding nutrition at every level of the FCDO's work. And I hope the Government will build on that foundation and continue to address the challenges. Thank you.
Minister Doughty.
Well, thank you, Mr Jardine, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairpersonship today, and it's been a genuine pleasure to listen to and take part in this debate today with many friends and colleagues from all sides of the House, so I know share deep passion on these issues, and I'm particularly grateful to the Right Honourable Member for Dumfriesshire, Clydesdale and Tweeddale for securing the debate, and indeed particularly the members of the APPG and the IDC for their crucial and important work on these issues. And it is very timely, as I can confirm that my colleague Baroness Chapman will be leading the UK delegation at the Nutrition for Growth Summit in Paris tomorrow and the following day, and I think that shows our continued commitment to this issue. And I know the Ambassador also looks forward to welcoming the Right Honourable Member, but also our colleague, my honourable friend from Exeter, to the event. She is hosting tomorrow at her residence on these issues, and also indeed my colleague from Worthing West will also be there in Paris as well. And my honourable friend gave a typically powerful and informed speech, and he rightly noted the UK leadership on this issue. I've heard clearly what he said on many of the points and his recommendations about the UK's contribution to Nutrition for Growth raised today, and indeed over the past months. I will not be able to provide him with all the assurances on specific financial or other related targets that he raised today, but I do hope I'll be able to respond to the substance of many of the points that he and other members have raised today. I thank him for his kind words about our FCDO staff, which I heartily concur with. My honourable friend from Exeter, I want to thank him for his work as the co-chair too, and his kind comments about my other ministerial colleague, Lord Collins, who we all know has strong passion on this issue too, particularly in his role as Minister for Africa. And we heard many powerful personal examples today. He shared some. I had the honour to see similar work on hunger and nutrition in my own past career in the humanitarian sector, including, for the record, for World Vision, which was mentioned a number of times in this debate. He raised a number of important points, and I would agree with him in his points about the links between nutrition and health, which others made. He also raised illicit finance. He will know of the Foreign Secretary's important work on that and getting resources back into countries that need them. The honourable friend from Strangford, it's always a pleasure to hear from him and his consistent and principled pressure on these issues. He highlighted absolutely rightly the important role of churches, Mrs Jardine, on these issues, and indeed faith communities more broadly, and indeed that reflects my own experiences working with those organisations. I can confirm in response to him and indeed others who asked about this that we are currently on track to meet the 2022-2030 commitments on 1.5 billion. For the latest figures, we spent 366 million in 2022. We don't have the latest numbers, but obviously I'm happy to keep the House updated on that. And my honourable friend from Worthing West also made important links between public health and nutrition. We know how crucial that is, and she spoke from her own passionate experience. Had excellent contributions from the for West Dorset, from Sheffield Central, who highlighted a number of issues in relation to conflict and food insecurity. And I thought it was particularly important that she raised the situations in a number of places. Sudan, our emergency assistance is assisting over 1 million people, including Sudanese refugees who fled the conflict and are seeking safety in Chad. And on Gaza, UK support has meant over 500,000 people have received essential healthcare and 647,000 have received food, and important issues that she raised in that regard. And the Minister, and I'm glad to have some inspiration on this, asked specifically about Ethiopia. We are supporting Ethiopia through the Child Nutrition Fund, which is helping the government deliver life-saving nutrition services through the health sector. And in relation to Ukraine, she made some very important points, but I again can confirm we provide over 240 million for humanitarian support, and also on issues like energy and reconstruction, which are also crucial to dealing with food and nutrition needs. And I understand the concerns that have been raised by colleagues across the Chamber today about the Prime Minister's recent announcements and our announcements on the necessary cuts to our aid budget. We all know the challenges we face today, challenges to our national security, the security of Europe and our world order are truly unprecedented, and the choice that's been made on ODA and defence spending has been an extremely difficult decision, one that the Prime Minister did not take lightly, as he shares our collective pride in the difference UK support is making, saving and improving lives all around the world. And he, the Foreign Secretary, indeed the entire ministerial team strongly believe in the importance of our international development agenda for the national interest, for our standing in the world and for our moral obligations to serve the most vulnerable. And I've been privileged to see the impact of that work on many occasions firsthand, and we have a proud record, and as the Prime Minister said, we are committed to spending 0.7% of GNI as soon as the conditions allow. Until then, we will use every pound we have to focus more than ever on maximising impact and value for money, but of course many challenges, including in this area, we face require more than money, and the partnerships that we're going to be creating as this important work on nutrition are part of this. And the UK's contribution to this year's summit squarely reflects that approach. We've worked tirelessly with the government of France, Mr Jardine, to prepare for a successful summit in Paris and mobilise commitments from a wide range of stakeholders. And central to that is going to be an initiative we're launching tomorrow, the Global Compact on Nutrition Integration, an issue which came up from many of the contributions, and that is designed to ensure that policies and investments in key sectors like health, food and climate place nutrition at their heart. It's going to help us make the biggest impact while making the most of limited resources, and that includes more joined-up service delivery and targeting root causes more effectively, and that's going to have important impacts on our wider work on climate resilience, on economic growth, which of course depend on a well-nourished population, and our wider work on health has been made very, very clear, and that will improve our chances of making progress at the scale and speed we need. And there have been many good examples reflected on today, but for example supporting mothers and children to access supplements and therapeutic foods as part of routine visits to primary health care, making sure the poorest can easily purchase from local markets all the foods they need for a healthy diet. And we've already taken that approach with many of our partners and given some examples already. And we also, mentioning Ethiopia again, we support farmers and businesses to produce the most nutritious foods, for example, lentils in Nepal, vegetables in Ethiopia. We can't do this alone. We need others to join us to succeed. We need to continue our work in integrating nutrition with our wider development work. And one of the areas I would just highlight is that only a tiny percentage of climate finance is allocated to nutrition. That's an unacceptable missed opportunity. We need to work with our partners to give more attention to the nutrition impact of their policies and investments in food systems more broadly. And that's why we're calling on all those with a stake in nutrition for growth, whether that's countries in the north, global north and south, multilaterals, private investors, civil society, who are also supporting to back the new global compact. And this more integrated, coherent approach will make sure the sum of everyone's commitments are greater than its parts. And of course, this is a challenging time for the summit, given the global economic climate. We think this will set a good way forward in that climate, bringing people together. Now, I know that the Honourable Member and others have lobbied for new financial pledges and specific targets. The spending review, and I'll need to look again at the specifics of our portfolio afresh, mean we cannot announce a financial commitment this week, and I want to be honest with the House about that, but we will submit the specifics of our commitment in due course through the official Nutrition for Growth channels, noting that France has set a deadline by the end of June, and we will of course keep the House updated on this as well, and indeed the work of the compact as we develop it. And finally, before I end, I just wanted to say a few words about our continued commitment to tackle child wasting, which a number of colleagues raised, the deadliest form of malnutrition. Only 2 weeks ago, Lord Collins reiterated his commitment at the launch of the joint UN initiative for the prevention of wasting, which is a new partnership with UNICEF, the WHO and WFP, and that complements our work on scaling up treatment through the Child Nutrition Fund, which my honourable friend from Exeter also asked about. It's an important part of our work, and since the FCDO's initial investment of $8 million, the CNF has attracted more than $29 million from 16 partner governments and $300 million from philanthropists, including a recent pledge from the Bezos family to match further contributions with up to $250 million. And our contributions to the Child Nutrition Fund were $15.74 million as of the end of 2024 through the Child Wasting Innovation Programme. So again, partnership, working together with a range of sources and making important contributions. But it's been a hugely helpful debate today. It's hugely informative for me and to hear the strength of feeling on the House on these issues. And I hope that my words today, and indeed Baroness Chapman's important words tomorrow in Paris, will reassure the Right Honourable Member, the other members of the APBG and indeed the opposition spokespeople that we are not turning our back on the world and nutrition will remain a key part of our development agenda.
Thank you. David Mundell to wind up.
Thank you, Ms Jardine. And can I commend you on your chairmanship in challenging circumstances in the House, because I think we have still managed to have a very constructive and informed debate. Of course, there are significant challenges, not least the financial challenges, but I do feel that the very fact that this debate has taken place in this Parliament today is something that will positively feed into the summit as a recognition that the United Kingdom takes these issues seriously, and I will certainly do my best to convey that. I want to, and I should have thanked in my own remarks Lord Collins for his work in the APBG before coming into government, and indeed the work that he does now in the very challenging role of Minister for Africa. I want to thank my co-chair, the member for Oxford, the member for Exeter, and I want to, he raised your personal experience and seeing on the ground the difference that interventions can make. And I think that is so important. And for all members who get the opportunity, I think it really is worth making these visits, because you can see the difference that is being made. The Honourable Member for Strangford, I think, touched on what I regard as a very important issue, not just in relation to nutrition, but actually all development issues, and that is securing public support and joining with groups in civic society here across the UK and indeed more widely to ensure that there is that public support for development, and particularly in relation to nutrition, which is such a significant contributor to development. Indeed, is foundational and critical to achieving most sustainable development goals. The Honourable Lady for Worthing West, I think, made a really, really important point in the 1% increase in food insecurity leads to a 2% increase in migration. And if people are serious about dealing with the issues of migration, they have to be serious about dealing with the issues of food insecurity as well. The member for West Dorset, I think, made a very important point in relation to the need to ensure continued UK global leadership in these and other issues, because otherwise Russia, China and other malevolent actors will become involved. And we've done tremendously well, as I think, as the Right Honourable Lady for Aldridge Brown Hills set out, in soft power terms, in terms of our work on the global stage. But we cannot give that up. I thought the Honourable Lady from Sheffield Central made a very important contribution on two particular points. One in relation to conflict, and that is so important in terms of the issue of malnutrition and food insecurity. And I was very moved. I don't know if other members attended an exhibition of drawings by children from Sudan. And a lot of the drawings were actually of people being shot whilst gathering food. And it brought home really the connection between conflict and food insecurity. And of course, she made the point about Sheffield University and its sustainable food unit, but the International Development Committee visited Kew Gardens to hear about the work there. I recently, with the APPG, visited the John Innes Research Centre in Norwich. There's a tremendous amount of work being done in relation to ensuring that we have more sustainable and farming and food production that takes account of climate change and local circumstances. I want to thank the member for Esher and Walton for her continued support for this issue. She's been a key member of both the International Development Committee in terms of producing our report and in terms of the APPG. And I think she made a particularly important point about ensuring that the UK does keep that expert capacity. I'm very positive about, as the Minister recognised, about the team in the FCDO, but we have to ensure that that capacity remains if we want to have global leadership. My right honourable friend, as I've said, from Aldridge Brown Hills, I think did a great deal in her time at the FCDO to make sure that that UK leadership was maintained in sometimes challenging circumstances. I think that's the best way, perhaps, to put it. I did welcome the Minister's contribution, and not just the content, but the tone of that contribution. I know that there are many within the government who do want to ensure that we still maximise the benefit that we get from ODA spending. We, of course, make the case that spending on malnutrition is the best bang for buck that there is, and we've heard from many of the contributions what for the relative input what the output is. I hope, since he did mention the Child Nutrition Fund, that they would be sympathetic to the call that I made and the Honourable Member for Exeter made in relation to increasing that contribution to £50 million. I look forward also to, in the post-spending review, given the longer extent of the pledging window, that the government might come back with a financial pledge. It's certainly, I think, the mood of this debate. To conclude, Ms Jardine, the Nutrition for Growth Summit in Paris is a key moment for international community to come together and address the scourge of malnutrition. The UK has a leading role to play. I hope, on the basis of what we've heard today, that it will play that role, and I look forward to observing it.
Thank you. Excuse me. The question is that this House has considered the Nutrition for Growth Paris Summit 2025. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Order, order. As everyone is here for the next debate, I think if we could get sort of shuffled round quite quickly. Yeah. Can we do it by 55, do you think? Oh. I've now got women hay fever. Oh, such is life.
So I think that's Chris.